Loving, gracious, justice-seeking God, we know that in this community, this country, and this world, there are many people who do not share the abundance that you have given us. There are many people whose lives are narrowed and stunted by poverty and the lack of opportunity, even the opportunity to work and earn a fair wage. And too many people who do have jobs are paid too little and not treated with the dignity that each one of us deserves. Oh dear God, we know that you care deeply about the people on the margins of society. Inspire us to care deeply as well. Of faith, to work for justice, keeping with the charge of the prophet Micah. Tonight, we celebrate as new congregations join bread. Every
It is as true as it is energizing to hear a room full of people shouting with one voice that bread rises. I dare not speak for anyone else in this room, but I suspect that I'm not the only person who finds himself in need of an infusion of energy and inspiration these past days, and more. For me, it continues to be a struggle to find the strength and energy to get out of bed in the morning, let alone to rise as we must to face the challenges ahead. Psalm 121 confronts this question directly with the words, Esa enaya leharim me'ayin yavo ezri, which means, I may be so bold as to add to the words of this sacred text, my help and strength also comes from all of you. From your presence here this evening, from our ongoing commitment to the cause of justice in Central Ohio, around the nation and around our world, and from your dedication to the idea that we too will rise, just as bread does. Remember that story? If you can't remember that story, in Judaism we have a Passover Seder. It lasts several hours and we study the story very carefully. You're all welcome to review the story with us at any time. But what happened? First, God sent Moses and Aaron to Pharaoh. Then, God turned the river to blood. Then, God sent the frogs. And then, after the frogs, an axe. Notice now, God didn't just send one gnat, because you can ignore one gnat. You can smash one gnat when it gets stuck in your eye and be done. But God, being almighty and all-powerful, made all the dust of the land become gnats. Can you imagine those thousands and millions of gnats? That got Pharaoh's attention. Pharaoh's magicians were outmatched and told Pharaoh that this was the finger of God. You know, if it was only me and the members of my wonderful congregation to confront our officials about the housing crisis in the city, they might listen, but chances are they wouldn't do anything about it. So when we send 2,100 people to the Nehemiah Action, we're going to be hard to ignore. When you are a NAC, a great network member all the time, to help us get 2,100 people at the action by bringing at least, you know the number, 3 people with you.
NACs are network members who fulfill all their commitments. First, they take on the 963 pledge outlined in your packet. When you committed at your house meeting to be a network member, you committed to bring 3 others with you to the Nehemiah Action next May. But we all know if we invite only 3 people, rarely do they all show up. So the 963 pledge means that to be successful in bringing at least 3 people, we all must invite at least 9 people to the Nehemiah Action. Then you have to make sure of those 9, at least 3 have committed to attend. When you do that, you are highly likely to have at least 3 people with you on May 13th, 2025.
Showing your focus live in Linden, South Linden is actually the area that they call it. And we have a lot of pollutants in our air. I'm a very involved person in my community. I've sat on the area commissions. I do a lot of community interaction, and I have been a 501 in this community for going on 14 years. But when my granddaughter, great-granddaughter was born, this little child cannot breathe because the poor air conditions in my community, 43211 South Linden, where she resides. If she gets it cold, we are rushing her to the hospital. And I don't know if you've ever had to deal with trying to put a breathing device on a baby who is squirming, and then as the child gets older, they really fight you back. And they will let you know, stop, don't do this. And they're struggling, and the mother is struggling, and everybody wants to cry. I watched my granddaughter go through it, I watched my daughter go through it, and I go through it every time it happens. Because she's too young to take asthma medication caused by poor breathing atmosphere based on things that are allowed in my community that may not be allowed in yours. Things like companies that emit chemicals, or recycling centers, or let's not talk about the junkyards that are out there, and different things like that. But they're in my community because we're a poor community. So I fight for justice because we need this. We need to have clean air. And it doesn't just affect my child, it affects other people's children. It affects elderly. It affects anyone that has any kind of breathing condition. We need to have safer environments to live in. So I will continue to support BREAD because trees protect us.
We protect trees.
BREAD.
Right.
Heat, poor air quality, and flooding disproportionately impact communities like Linden, the Hilltop, and Franklinton, where tree canopy coverage is lower. The Tree Master Plan calls for Columbus to also implement local ordinances to protect trees on both public and private land. So far, the public tree ordinance was passed this past August. I believe it's fair to say that BREAD's involvement played an important role in the Columbus Public Tree Protection Ordinance being passed by City Council. BREAD?
Right.
Rosalie Hendon, our city forester in Columbus, is here tonight, and she shared with us that the implementation of the public tree ordinance is going well so far. Now I'm going to invite Rosalie to say a few words to you to update you on what's happening.
Board members, and thank you for inviting me. I'm Rosalie Hendon, City Forester for Columbus. I led the creation of the Columbus Urban Forestry Master Plan, our city's first master plan for its trees. It was approved by Columbus City Council and the Mayor's Office. Thank you. And the Mayor's Office in 2021. And we spent the last 3 years in implementation of that plan. The Urban Forestry Master Plan was co-created with community leaders, and this is its vision: to preserve, prioritize, and grow our tree canopy over the coming decades. Trees provide so many benefits: shade and cooling our homes and businesses, slowing traffic, absorbing floodwater and filtering the air. Trees can lower air temperatures by 20 to 45 degrees, according to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. New York City saw a significant decrease of asthma in young children, 29% decrease after increasing its tree canopy. A study in Baltimore even found that a 10% increase in tree canopy was associated with a roughly 12% decrease in crime. As a city, we wanted to lead by example and make sure we were doing all we could to protect the trees growing on our property. Last December, City Council voted to approve the first changes to Columbus's public tree code in 30 years. I much-needed changes. Protections for street and park trees were strengthened, and mitigation, which is the term for the steps we take when a tree is removed due to construction, was enshrined in city code for the first time. Now, when a public tree is removed due to construction, it must be mitigated, inch for inch, resulting in many more trees being replanted. However, we know that 70% of trees in Columbus grow on private property, and Columbus currently lacks any protection citywide for privately owned trees. It is a priority in the Urban Forestry Master Plan to create city code to protect trees during development. We are finalizing a research report that recommends ordinance concepts from other cities across the U.S., and next year we plan to conduct outreach and begin drafting code. We will need your input and support to continue this important work. Finally, I'll leave you with an announcement regarding an exciting program we started to help fund tree planting on private property. The Columbus Tree Assistance Program is funded by the Columbus Recreation and Parks Department and administered by our partner, Franklin Soil and Water Conservation District. Applicants can receive funds to purchase and plant trees on private property. Civic associations, neighborhood associations, HOAs, area commissions, and other organized groups of landowners will be eligible to apply for this competitive assistance program. The application will open in February, and Franklin Soil and Water will host information sessions then. I encourage you all, including your faith organizations, to consider applying to plant trees on your properties and joining us in the effort to increase our tree canopy. Thank you.
Hello, as she said, I'm Doug Platt from the Raymond Christian Center. And I'm standing here before you tonight as a dad, and my son, a single man, had found a nice place to live a couple of years back, and on the east side. The rent was about $700. Then 2 years later, the landlord sold the property to a landlord out of town or out of state. The new landlord gave the people 60 days to evacuate so that he could come in and renovate the property and raise the rent. Remember I said the rent was $700 when my son was there, and he was raising the rent to $1,250. My son couldn't afford that, so he started looking for a new place. But where else could he find another safe, decent place for $700? Rent was high everywhere. He had to find a roommate so that he could split the rent somewhere else. I also stand before you as a former landlord. Back then, I had to make tough decisions, but I always tried to do what was fair for everyone. Now, I don't see that happening in so many of these cases. With out-of-state landlords, I feel like so many of our cases so many of them chases after the dollar bill instead of looking out for the tenant who's been faithfully there. In closing, predatory landlords must be stopped, and we need to have more compassion for struggling people seeking housing.
Brad? I'd like to thank you for having me. I want to share a story of one of my clients, one of my most recent clients, that actually doesn't live too far away from our location here. She rented a property, a two-bedroom unit. About 2 years ago, she started living there, and basically from the first day she was there, she had issues. before she complained, they reported this to landlords, and that began the back and forth game between her and the landlords trying to get things fixed and repaired. She then discovered that she had issues with bed bugs. And the response from the landlord from that was, bag up all your stuff. Which made sense for a temporary fix. But by the time my client came to me, she had been living out of those bags for over a year. She was never really given much guidance from the landlord on what to do. What she pieced together was that the landlord started treatments, but lost their contract with the pest control company. And so she was just left to fend for herself, basically. She even told me that when the landlord told her that we will provide you with sprays, like the sprays you buy at like Walmart to take care of those issues, which I don't believe she ever got. So she dealt with that as she could on her own, until recently she started having leaks of sewage into her kitchen and to her utility area. She called code. Well, actually, back up for a second. So she paid her rent on time. She was a very timely person with her rent. And she was able to show me that she had a credit balance on her ledger for October. But then she had this issue with the leaks and then discovered that her heat wasn't working. And she called code. Code enforcement came over and of course, cited the violations and gave the landlord a warning to fix these things in a certain amount of time. And then she went back on her ledger, her online portal, and suddenly the credit that was there wasn't there anymore. When those people who have power realize that these problems are not made up, that are not exaggerated, that they are real, very real, my hope is that they will finally listen and they will make the changes that we need.
Even though the county has a registry, it lacks enforcement power and is limited as to the data it collects. County Auditor Stinziano's Chief of Staff, Joellen Klein, is here to address us now. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me. As Kathy indicated, a high-res code does require owners of rental properties to register their properties with the county auditor. And since Auditor Stinziano took office in 2019, we have made strides in improving accessibility and efficiency of registering rental properties, and it's resulted in an increase of the number of properties that are actually registered from about 7,700 to over
adopted by City Council. So we can work together. Sorry, I'm so short. Less than 5 feet tall. Again, we are working with our city partners to try and bring a rental registry online for the city of Columbus, and we hope that they'll be able to do that in the very near future. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Klein. Creation of a city rental registry, as she mentioned, appeared in Columbus City Council member Shayla Faber's Housing for All legislative agenda, as we heard from Michael from Legal Aid, which represents many low-income tenants. Neither housing judges nor the public have any idea how common it is for people to be renting homes that are absolutely unfit for human habitation. A rental registry with a certificate of habitability would put predatory landlords on notice at the beginning that they will be held to account. But the proposal to create a rental registry has run into roadblocks. The Columbus Apartment Association is opposed to a rental registry. So is Mayor Ginther. Will that stop us? No! Even more importantly, as Greg continues its campaign, we need your help in raising awareness of the crisis in rental housing. Please ask around your congregations and communities for stories about unsafe housing with predatory landlords. We need to build our power by bringing at least 2,100 people to the Nehemiah Action on May 13th, 2025. We need each of us to invite at least 9 people, confirm at least 6, and bring at least 3.
This evening, we've heard updates on some of the campaigns we've been working on. These things would not have happened without the hard work and dedication of our research committees. All of us joined them. Our dedication to build our people power and our financial investments in this work. That's what makes this happen. This organization. Please stand if you have invested this year.